What's up, everybody? I am your host, a crispy ghost who is here to make your life hell, and that is my co-host, a teenage cancer patient who's knocking on heaven's door. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate, where today we get a little spooky as we discuss a subgenre that we don't talk about all that often, ghosts. So today we are going to dive into a movie that Jordan here has been forced to watch about 500 times now, maybe.
Yeah, it's a lot. Not through, because I normally shut it down or ends up being a background movie. But this movie used to, even before I was married, this movie I feel like I've seen 5,000 times.
Is this your wife's favorite movie?
No,
Oh, it's not.
no,
Okay.
The Conjurings.
Oh, she likes The Conjurings over this one?
Oh God, The Conjurings is like The Conjurings and the others. This movie, all those are like the go-to.
I think this is better than The Conjuring
I agree.
by a mile.
By a lot.
Yeah.
The only Conjuring that comes close to this, which is not an actual Conjuring, but it's Annabelle Comes Home.
Yeah.
And it is better than a lot of the others, a lot with practical effects. And I think that's one of the things that makes this movie so much better than most paranormal movies. I think this is one of the better paranormal ghost movies of the 2000s. And I think a big part of that is their use of a lot of practical effects.
Well, we haven't actually said what the movie is, so I didn't even think about that. On this episode, we are talking about Peter Cornwell's The Haunting in Connecticut from 2009. A lot of ghost movies came after this, for sure.
Yeah, I think this movie inspired a lot of ghost movies.
Oh, yeah. It was because after this, it was like, then it was Insidious, The Conjurings, The Nun. It just kind of went wild. This is where Blumhouse started making a lot of their money.
Yeah, I don't know how well this did at the actual box office. I'm sure you'll have that in a minute.
Yes.
I do remember this movie being very widely talked about and in the years following it. Definitely being a movie I think changed the direction of horror on the paranormal side of things. Just like you said, a ton of paranormal stuff came out after this. But one of the things that this movie did really, really good, which was practical effects, I think was lost in a lot of the movies that followed. I think they took everything that made this movie a good paranormal movie, and they ditched all that and kind of just ran with the ghost thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be honest right off the bat. Every time this movie's been brought up for the show, I kind of dread it. I'm not a big fan of this movie. Most of it goes back to I'm not like a huge fan of ghost movies necessarily. I decided to go into it this time with a clean slate, an open mind, because I remember this movie being kind of slow to me. The story was kind of like your rinse, wash, and repeat type ghost story, but I went into it this time with no previous opinion, an open mind, looking at the good and the bad. I will say my opinion did not radically change, but I do have a slightly different opinion than I had like a week ago, So that's kind of where I'm standing on this episode. And once we get at the end, I'll this is what I think about it now.
Yeah. This is also one of those ghost movies that, like a lot of the bigger ones, based off a true story, but extremely loosely based off of a true story.
Oh, yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah. So, big part of the plot of this, it was just completely added for plot's sake. But yeah, that seems like another thing that this movie kind of led into, because I know the Amityville was obviously the biggest of the paranormal horror movies based off a supposed true story, but I think this kind of re-kicked kinda rekindled that flame, and I think that's where the Conjuring movies and stuff picked up off of.
I can agree with that. Totally. So with that being said, are you ready to dive into The Haunting in Connecticut?
I'm ready.
All right.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at grindhousesyndicate.horror.pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes as always. And you know what I always say, the morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
And if you really love us and don't want us to end up as a creepy burnt ghost out for revenge, give us a review. The Haunting in Connecticut is a 2009 American supernatural horror film directed by Peter Cornwell. It was based on alleged events experienced by the Snedeker family. The film stars Virginia Madsen, Kyle Gallner, and Martin Donovan. It was produced by Gold Circle Films and Integrated Films. It had a budget of $10 million and a box office of $78.8 million. It was released in the United States on March 27th of 2009 by Lionsgate, where it received genuinely unfavorable reviews from critics. Critics did not care for this.
That's not surprising.
Nope. Principal photography commenced on September 10th of 2007 and concluded on December 16th of the same year. The film was primarily shot in Winnipeg and Tulin, Manitoba, with Tulin serving as the primary location, where they used a large century-old house located in the town to depict the haunted house central to the plot. Promotional material for The Haunting in Connecticut claimed that the film was based on true events experienced by the Snedeker family of Southington, Connecticut in 1986. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren asserted that the family's house had previously operated as a funeral home where morticians engaged in necromancy, and described the property as harboring powerful supernatural forces that were eventually expelled through an exorcism. So let's talk a little bit about necromancy. It is the practice of magic involving communication with the dead by summoning their spirits as apparitions or visions for the purpose of having the dead foretell future events and reveal hidden knowledge. Now, this evolved from shamanism or prehistoric ritual magic, which was used to call forth ghosts, most of the time your ancestors, in order to ask questions about the past or the future. Now, according to records, this form of ritual magic was used in ancient Egypt, Babylonia, Greece, Rome, and even China. The necromancer might also surround himself with morbid aspects of death, which often included wearing the deceased clothing and consuming foods that symbolized lifelessness and decay, such as black bread and unfermented grape juice. Some necromancers even went so far as to take part in the mutilation and consumption of corpses. In the more modern era, which is more of what we are dealing with in this film, necromancy is more genuinely used as a term to describe manipulation of death in the dead, often with the use of ritual magic or other kind of occult ceremonies like seances, channeling, and spiritualism, which is used to invoke spirits in order to reveal future events or secret information. So now we got a really good scope on necromancy, which is a very important part of the plot of this.
Yeah, seance. You're definitely not going to get through covering this movie without mentioning seance.
Oh, 100%. So back to the Warrens and their house exorcism thing. So skeptical investigators have disputed the validity of the Seneca's family's story, with scientific paranormal investigator and author Benjamin Radford noting that there is little or no proof that anything supernatural occurred at the house, and he also claims that author Ray Garton was hired by the Warrens to co-write the book In a Dark Place: The Story of a True Haunting, where he was instructed to make up material to create a more compelling narrative. Researcher Joe Nickel similarly dismissed the case as a hoax, observing that some of the Warrens' collaborators later admitted to being encouraged to fabricate incidents for dramatic effects following Ed Warren's death in 2006. Now, it is important to note that Ray Garton, who wrote the book that partially inspired this movie, actually admits that this is true, saying that the Warrens told him, quote, "Everybody who comes to us is crazy. Otherwise, why would they come to us? You've got some of the story, just use what works and make the rest up and make it scary." Garton actually denounced the book all the way until his death in 2024, claiming the story to be 100% fiction. Needless to say, him and the Warrens did not remain on good terms after he went public with his version of how the book was made. So when I say the book was partially the inspiration for the movie, the reason I put it like that is because the main inspiration for this was actually a documentary on the Snedeker story that was put together and aired on the Discovery Channel called A Haunting in Connecticut, which I always call this movie A Haunting in Connecticut, and when I started writing the episode, I'm like, The Haunting?
Yeah,
Yeah, it threw
the
me off,
haunting.
but I think it's because the Discovery Channel had already used that name. That's
Yeah.
my guess, yeah, because A Haunting sounds better than The Haunting, but I was able to find this documentary on YouTube and actually used it to research this episode, so if you, wanna check that out after listening to this, you can kinda get the real story. Another interesting thing, according to the documentary and Sarah Snedeker, she said that after the book came out, her and her family had a major falling out with Garton, where they both ended up saying some harsh things about each other in the media. And she also says that soon after the investigation ended, the Snedekers had a huge falling out with the Warrens because she claims they came in and basically took advantage of her and her family, and they greatly benefited from their story. So what we got here is the Snedekers, Ray Garton, and the Warrens all three hated each other and went on to, talk a bunch of shit, and they all called each other liars and all accused each other of making up this story.
Yeah.
They all hated each other. This is
Yeah.
crazy.
So in defense of the movie and the Snedeker family, well, for one, I'm really glad that Ed and Lorraine Bourne, their part in this was not included in the movie. It's not
Yeah,
like
I
The
agree.
Conjuring
I
where
agree. I would've rolled my eyes so hard.
yeah, they're not in the movie. Now, I'm sure that the Warrens did tell the people who wrote books about certain cases to amplify things and to make shit up.
Yeah, that was
Um,
an accusation on the Amityville Horror book as well.
yeah,
Yeah, a
I'm
lot of their
sure.
big stories.
Yeah, I'm sure they did make things much bigger than they actually were. They're trying to. I mean, that's what they did. That's what they made a living doing. I will say that it's not the Snedekers family's fault if the Warrens came in and decided to make this into a book and made a bunch of shit up and all this. Like, that's not their fault. That doesn't discount anything that may or may not have happened to them prior to the Warrens coming in. I as far as the Warrens go, I highly doubt that Lorraine Warren said everybody who comes to us is crazy, as in, like, they didn't believe in the paranormal stuff to just make it up. I think Ed and Lorraine Warren were way too much into the paranormal investigation stuff, and they did that for a long time with not being known to really not believe in paranormal stuff at all. So I do think that that was kinda BS. But yeah, as far as the movie itself, glad that they didn't include Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're never mentioned in the movie, and most of the real accounts that were put in the movie were prior to their involvement.
Yeah. So, despite all of this, though, The Haunting in Connecticut opened in North America on March 27th of 2009, debuting at number 2 at the box office, where it grossed $23 million during its opening weekend. The performances of Virginia Madsen and Kyle Gallner received praise, with Robert Ebert calling the film technically proficient and well acted, but critics largely criticized the film for its reliance on familiar genre tropes and overuse of jump scares, with Empire magazine describing it as a rehash of haunted house movies with a few surprises. The Haunting in Connecticut debuted at number 1 on the DVD and Blu-ray charts, selling 1.5 million units during its first week of release, making it the top-selling title in North America for the week of July 19, 2009. The extended edition DVD included 2 audio commentaries, deleted scenes, and several featurettes such as Two Dead Boys, The Making of Haunting in Connecticut, The Fear is Real, Reinvestigating the Haunting, and Memento Mori, The History of Post-Mortem Photography. So Gold Circle Films produced a follow-up titled The Haunting in Connecticut 2, Ghosts of Georgia, directed by Tom Elkins. The film was released through a limited theatrical run and via VOD on February 1st of 2013, which, as you may have guessed, received genuinely unfavorable reviews, earning a 19% approval rating based on only 16 reviews.
Yeah, that is also a movie I have been forced to sit through,
Oh, I didn't even know there was
multiple
a second.
I didn't either until I was forced to sit through it, and I will say that the second one is awful. I hated it. It did not do the things that I think that The Haunting in Connecticut did great. The things that I really like about The Haunting in Connecticut, which is the practical effects side of it, was not present. It's also kind of very obviously a money grab when it is called The Haunting in Connecticut, but it's
In Georgia?
in Georgia.
That's
Like,
weird.
why would it not be its own movie unless you were just trying to money grab off of the
Yeah,
name
yeah.
Haunting in Connecticut? So yeah, that's complete BS. As far as the Blu-ray release special features you were just talking about, I did watch the making of. They had some pretty decent stuff in there, but they do the whole like revisiting the haunting. They actually have the family members. They do a whole like documentary talking about the real life story with the real family members.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That's what the Discovery
which
Channel documentary that this is actually based off of. Because apparently, when they went to go, like, write the film, they had only got the idea from the documentary. I don't think they had even knew there was a book because the book came out in 1993, maybe 92.
So I think it was either the director or I think the head producer was working on. I think it was the producer. He was working on the remake to Amityville Horror back in 2003, the first time the idea of this movie was brought up, and it was sent to him by another producer that worked on the movie, and this story was sent to him and said, "Hey, this should be a movie. This is actually a scarier story than the Amityville Horror story." So that's where the first like basis, and that was before the documentary. But yeah, thought that was really cool that they had the actual family members tell the real story, and you kinda tell at the beginning of this movie, it starts out almost as if it's the actual documentary, A Haunting
Oh,
in
yeah, yeah,
Connecticut.
it's set up like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's the first scene, and then it goes into the movie itself, but yeah, the last special feature I did not get into, though. That's one I didn't have time to. But yeah, good special features, man, for 2009.
Yeah, when I started watching the documentary the other day, it starts out like that, where it's her, like the mom is sitting there and she goes into, pretty much very similar to what she does in the movie. So I'm pretty sure it's like it's replicating that documentary. All right, so ratings. Rotten Tom gave it a 17%. IMDb gave it a 5.8 out of 10. Letterboxd a 2.6 out of 5. And the Google average audience rating is a 4.1 out of 5. If you would like to watch this movie, you can currently find it streaming for free on Pluto TV, Fandango at Home, the CW, whatever that is, the Roku channel, Plex, and Amazon Prime. All right, let's dive into the plot of this ghost story. So we start out by seeing these really old creepy pictures of people back in like the 30s and the 40s posing with their dead relatives in this funeral home. And we also get a couple quick shots of some embalming when we then get the title card and the based on a true story. It's always been like really crazy to me that people used to pose for photos with their dead family.
Yeah. Yeah, that's weird.
Like that is like these pictures obviously were made for the movie, but that was a thing back then. Like I watched a whole like YouTube documentary on it once of how people like looked at death, not necessarily death differently, but like the saying goodbye funeral process different than we do now. Like it was like expected that when your family member died, like you were all going to go get one last like family photo with them dead. And to think that now is fucking weird.
It is weird. That was early on in funeral industry stuff too. Like I've seen a documentary recently that was talking about how America didn't really have a funeral industry until the end of the Civil War. And that's when obviously people were dying in masses and people discovered that there was a lot of money behind it. And these people who ran these funeral homes, the first ones kind of modeled themselves after doctors and lawyers and like wore nice suits and looked the part. And it essentially they made a really good point outside of buying a house or a car. Your funeral is a lot of people's most expensive purchase that they'll ever have in their life. But yeah, that was the beginning of it. So the funeral industry is really not that old, and these pictures are dated to the time of very early on. So a lot of things have changed since then. The idea of taking a picture with your dead relative is super creepy.
Yeah, and in all the pictures, like all the family members are like just fucking dead faced. Like they're not sad, they're not happy,
That was like all pictures back then.
and it's just like it's so weird,
It
man.
was a
So weird.
a weird thing in pictures for a long time was to not make any expression. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of people look super angry in their pictures. I don't know why that was, but I do know as far as, like, taking pictures prior to there being a funeral industry, they said it was a lot more intimate of an experience. Like, people, it was normally at their house, they buried them on their own land. So maybe that was kind of it. Maybe it was a thing before the funeral industry that people, when cameras first came about, they started taking pictures with their dead relatives. I don't know.
Wild. So we then cut to present day where we see this interview beginning with Sarah Campbell, who is one of our main characters of this movie. The interviewer then asks her, "Why do you think this happened to you?" And she responds basically with, "I don't know for sure. Why does bad stuff happen to anybody?" And she then begins explaining the life altering events that led them to getting caught up in this ghost story. And I'm going to give a quick summary of what is going on here. So, the Campbells were a normal, everyday American family in 1987 when, unfortunately, one day their teenage son Matt was diagnosed with cancer. He ends up getting accepted into this program that is testing a new experimental cancer treatment, but It is a few hours away, which means that they have to drive back and forth all the time, and the constant hours in the car after treatment is causing Matt to get sicker and making this whole situation worse. So Sarah, his mom, starts looking for a closer home to rent until Matt gets better or dies.
Yeah.
It could be either one. So the next morning, we see Sarah and Matt arrive back at the house. It is breakfast time, and we see the whole family up and about. And this is where we get some character introductions and what exactly is going on here. So we've already met Sarah, the mom, and Matt, the teenage son, living with cancer. Next, we have Peter, the dad, who is a small business owner, the breadwinner, and a recovering alcoholic. Then Billy, Sarah and Peter's youngest son, and obviously Matt's little brother. Then we have Wendy, Sarah's teenage niece, who is living with the Campbells and helping with Matt. And finally, Mary, Wendy's younger sister. I don't know if I missed it, but did you happen to catch why Wendy and Mary are living with them?
So Wendy, I think, is just helping out, helping to take care of them, but I don't think they ever specifically mention. But I do know in the real life story, she was a big part of it. She
Mhm.
did live with them, and she's in that little documentary on the Blu-ray. Her and Matt were very close in real life.
Yeah. So we see Sarah and Peter kind of arguing about the financial situation and the driving back and forth to Connecticut when Sarah then says that they need to find a cheap place to rent that is close to the hospital. And after thinking about it for a little bit, Peter agrees, telling Sarah that he will stay at their current house during the week and run the business, and he will come and see them on the weekends. We then get a montage of Matt going through this treatment where his doctor explains that he is going to seem like he's getting sicker and getting worse, but the reality is that this is just the treatment doing its job. And we also see Sarah going through the newspaper looking for rentals in the area. We then see Sarah and Matt pull up to this two-story house with a man named Mr. Sinclair who is renting the place out. And this will be our setting for our ghost story. So this is definitely a pretty old house, a lot of solid wood decorations and trim inside, very old-fashioned looking, and Sarah makes the comment to Mr. Sinclair that it is really big and spacious, it's in a good location, so why is the rent so cheap? And Mr. Sinclair only response is that the house has a bit of a history, but he does not elaborate on what that history is, and for some reason, Sarah doesn't ask.
Well, no, I think he does elaborate, but the camera cuts. Like,
Oh,
he's
you think we just didn't see it?
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, I'll mention it later on down the plot, but she knew from
Oh,
the
I didn't even pick
beginning,
up on
yeah.
that.
Yeah, he tells her from the beginning why the rent's so cheap. She just keeps it from the family. That's actually why initially she doesn't move in.
Ooh.
She's like, "It's
Yeah.
perfect price, it's
Uh,
perfect size." That's why initially she says no. But then she obviously has a change of heart coming up when her son is sick as fuck and just went through chemo.
you know, hindsight's 20/20, but I should have had you write the episode considering I've only seen the movie like 3 times. I didn't pick up on any of that at all. So at first, Sarah doesn't take the house, but during the next trip, she just can't stand watching her son suffer in this car anymore. So she calls Mr. Sinclair in the middle of the night and takes the house, where he lets them move in right then and there. And while cutting the TV off, we get our first look at something spooky as we see the dark silhouette of a man in the reflection of the TV screen. The next day, we see that Matt gets to pick his room before anybody else gets there, and he ends up being drawn to the basement. Also, we see that Sarah finds a bunch of those pictures of the dead people that we saw in the beginning of the film, which she promptly throws away. Because as it stands right now, we determine like she probably knows
She
what's going on, but the
she
rest of the family
yeah.
doesn't know. So she's she needs to get rid of this shit before they find it.
And this is
Yeah.
more proof that she does know. She finds it and she tries to get rid of it real quick. She doesn't
Yeah.
she even tries to cover them up in the trash.
Damn, that went right over my head.
Yeah, she doesn't want anybody else to figure out what this place is. I gotta say, this would be an awful thing to go through as a parent. If the right size house, really nice, and a nice area on the budget that I'm looking for came along, and it was a former morgue/funeral home, I would I would move in. I would do it.
Oh, yeah, I would move in. I would be fine with
I
that.
would be like, fuck it.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm dealing with,
I'd be
like,
stoked
making
on
this drive.
the mortuary room downstairs. I'd be like, "This is fucking cool." Like, I
Yeah.
wouldn't change that. One thing I do wanna point out is Matt being drawn to the basement, that's actually part of the real story.
Yeah.
The real Matt claims to have heard someone calling his name from down there the first moment they stepped in the house.
Yep.
So we then see everyone show up there with all of their stuff, and they're all excited and picking their rooms and all that. And while that is going on, we see Matt down in the basement where he discovers that there are a set of doors that are locked that they can't get open. I will say, when Sarah is showing Wendy her room and she opens that closet door and we get that little jump scare in the mirror, that shit was good. It was
Yeah.
good. It got me.
Yeah.
There's a couple in here that actually got me.
Yeah, that was a creepy jump scare. I think creepy is a good word for it because it's one of those jump scares that's not, like, in your face.
No, it's quick.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
real quick and, you catch it. It's one of those things that your eye's not, like, specifically looking for it. I do wonder how good it would have played out without the sound effect, though. It wouldn't have had the jump scare, but it would
Yeah,
have
yeah.
upped the creepiness.
I love them when they're, like this one is like, middle of the day, nice sunny day. You're just not expecting it. Like jump
Yeah.
scares in the dark, yeah, I'm expecting those. But yeah, I like this one. So next we see Sarah down in the basement mopping up for Matt when Matt then comes downstairs. And he starts trying to get into this locked room again when suddenly he turns to talk to his mom and he is shocked to see that the mop water on the floor is now blood. Now, despite his reaction, Sarah doesn't see anything wrong. To her, it just looks like regular mop water, but to him, it looks like she's lathering his floor in blood. So this is apparently another detail from the actual story, but it happened a little differently. It was the mom who saw the blood, where she then went and got this painter lady who was working in the house, and she took her over there, and she also saw the blood, where she then suddenly left and never came back.
Yeah, so to add on to that, the real life version of it, so she's mopping and the mop water kinda turns, like, pinkish red, and so what happened is she was mopping the tile where they used to drain the blood for the bodies. So this was essentially like
Old dried up blood?
little small bits of blood that was in the cracks and the texture of the tile over time that built up. And as she started mopping there, and she probably didn't put two and two together.
I don't even know if I would
that
have,
it was
yeah.
blood, but yeah, it's cool that this was also based off of a actual incident and a lot of the scares and stuff in this movie outside of the whole like photography part of it and seance part of it were taken from actual things because they actually worked with the Snedeker family when they were writing the movie. So that's one thing I will give them credit for.
So once Matt realizes that this is a hallucination, he then kind of plays this off and doesn't tell his mom what he sees. And the reason that he is keeping this a secret is because the doctor told his mother that if he started seeing hallucinations, to let him know immediately because this could be a sign that Matt is having a bad reaction to this experimental treatment. We then see a similar event happen again when Matt puts some plates out for dinner. The plates appear back in the cabinet, and when Matt goes to say something about it to his mom, the plates fall onto the ground and shatter. So Matt thinks that he is having these hallucinations. He's trying to hide it from his mom, but his mom is starting to suspect that he is seeing things, which of course makes her extremely concerned. So when I watched this movie at the beginning of the week, for like the first hour, I was racking my brain of where I knew the mom from, and it finally hit me. So her name is Virginia Madsen, and she was the main character in Candyman, and
Mhm.
also, you'll know this one, Jim Carrey's wife in The Number 23.
Yeah,
Yeah. She also, to me, shares a pretty close resemblance to Nancy's mom in Nightmare on Elm Street.
she does.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
yeah.
I could see those 2 being related.
I tried to
Holy
look it I
shit.
tried to look it up and see if they were like mother and daughter, but apparently they're not. But yeah, that's yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
they definitely now that you say that, like, that they definitely look a lot
Yeah.
alike.
So we then jump to the middle of the night where we see Matt sit up in bed, but he looks a little ominous. And we immediately jump into like this vision flashback where we see two people in this locked room that Matt can't get into. One of these guys seems like an older man and the other is much younger. Matt then like jumps into the younger guy's body where he sees the older dude carving words all over these corpses. When suddenly we get this way too close up of an eyelid being stretched and cut off. This part totally gives me creeps.
Yeah, this part's fucking fantastic, man. I thought that the body looked great. I thought that, like, all the fucking script that's carved into the body looked fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And then the eyelid cut was one of those, like, super cringy, like,
Oh yeah.
fuck moments. Like,
It's like makes you just like kind of curl up into a ball.
I think one of the things, though, that makes this scene so awesome is the eye itself. They did such a good job at doing the dead eye. Like, when somebody dies and they've been dead for a while, their eye, like, loses the color and it gets that, like, kinda cloudy film over it,
Yeah.
and we get this really close up of that, and I thought it fucking the practical effects on this looked great.
I will concur with all of that. Also, because we are going to be doing these like visions, flashbacks a bunch, I'm going to get their names out of the way now so I don't have to keep calling them like older man and younger guy. So the old dude is named Ramsey Aikman and the younger guy is named Jonah. They're going to be very important throughout the rest of this movie. So after the eyelid gets cut off, we then see Matt wake up from this dream vision flashback thing where he then slowly walks towards this locked door, but when he grabs the knob, it burns him so bad he gets blisters on his hand. So we then jump to the next night where we see Matt again woken up in the middle of the night, but this time the locked door is open. We then see him walk inside where we can see another figure through the frosted glass, which looks like it might be Jonas. And then we hear some distant, creepy screams. And what happens here is Jonah kind of possesses Matt, kind of jumps into his body. So the next morning, we see Matt's brother Billy come down to the basement looking for Matt. And this is where he discovers that Matt is hanging out in this room that none of them have ever seen before because, it's been locked the whole time. And when he walks in, that is when it is revealed that this is a full-blown embalming room because this house used to be a funeral home. And apparently when this place was shut down or closed or whatever, they didn't take any of the shit that they would use to embalm people. It's all still here.
Well, in real life, I guess they didn't because she talks about in the documentary, or even the younger brother talks about it, how very early on when they first went there, Matt was took him down the basement and was showing him this stuff that they used to use to like the funeral home used to
Yeah,
use. Like one
and
of them was
embalming
a
and stuff, yeah.
lift. They had a bunch of the tools and stuff down there, and they very quickly put together that this used to be a funeral home. Now, the mom did too. She was not told prior that it was a funeral home in real life. She figured out right after they moved in. She obviously didn't like look in that room when she first did a walkthrough when her son was getting the treatment. And she said essentially if they would have moved in, although it did freak her out, they would have completely lost out on their first month's rent and
Yeah.
their deposit and all that. So she just pretty much ran with the punches. But the kids very early on pretty much discovered all these tools down there.
So Billy walks in there and he immediately sees Matt, who is looking kind of, a little evil. And he tells Billy to get up on this embalming table where Matt then begins to spin him faster and faster. And while he is doing this, we see two things. One, Billy is getting freaked the fuck out. He's screaming stop over and over again, but Matt just keeps going. And two, Matt begins having these kind of flashbacks of Jonas, and we see that Ramsey is removing the bodies from the coffins and replacing them with sandbags, which is obviously to trick the family into believing their loved one is in the coffin when they actually are not. And we will find out later just what Ramsey is doing with these bodies.
So the gurney was an actual gurney that was still left there. This whole him spinning his younger brother was an actual thing that happened in real life. I think that the whole house, the basement thing, if you watch this movie, you'll notice that when they're shooting in the basement, it is a completely different feel than when they're shooting anytime outside of the basement. Like, all the basement scenes had this blue, like, they almost with the color palette, like,
Yeah, the
they
color
have
palette's extremely different.
yeah, they had this very blue, cold, dark color palette, and then as soon as they go upstairs, it's a very, like, warm yellow color palette, and I think that was really smart as it gives this house, like, almost like it's a character in the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, yeah.
I thought that was really cool. Also, the props people for the set did an amazing job with the time period pieces, like all the old embalming fluid containers and all the old, like, period style tools.
Oh, it looks legit. Totally
Yeah.
legit.
Yeah, it's awesome looking.
So Matt suddenly stops and snaps out of it when his dad walks in the room, and this is where his little brother Billy looks up at him and says, "What's wrong with you?" Because it is beginning to be obvious that the whole family is starting to notice that Matt is acting a little different. So we then see the family sit down to eat dinner, and this is where Peter decides to break the news about the dark history of this house. And he pretty much says, yes, this was a funeral home, but it is not anymore. It's just a house made out of wood, and we're going to live here until Matt finishes up at the hospital or dies. They then all go to join hands in order to say grace before they eat, when suddenly Matt is transported back in time with Jonah, where he is seated at a table with like 6 other people attempting to attempting to conduct a seance. And we also see Ramsey standing off to the side behind a camera watching. One thing I do want to mention, just in case it is not clear, Matt and Jonah are sharing a body in both the past and present. So Matt is experiencing all of this through Jonah's eyes, and then in the present, Jonah is experiencing this through Matt. So we then see everyone sitting at this table, joining hands, and they close their eyes, when suddenly Jonah winces in pain as he begins being inhabited by this spirit. We also get some creepy screaming in the background as a very distressed Jonah jerks back and forth. But before we see what actually happens here, Matt is brought back to the present by his mother yelling his name. And when he comes to, it is obvious to everyone that something is very wrong with Matt now. Wendy then takes a very upset and confused Matt down to his room to rest, as Sarah blames it all on the cancer medication. A damn medication.
Yeah, So they have some, like, flashbacks, the whole stuff in the kitchen or not flashbacks, scenes where Matt is clearly, like, hallucinating, I think, from his medication. Like, he leans up against a pillar at
Yeah,
one
yeah.
point, and there's all those worms, and then
Mhm.
with the dishes in the kitchen. So I think that it was kinda smart adding that in there, that this medication is actually causing him some legit hallucinations. So when some of this stuff starts kicking off, he does think that in the beginning that this is
The drugs.
it could very well could be the treatment that he's getting, and he doesn't wanna say anything because they could take him off of it.
Yeah,
Um
I would just stick with it and see hallucinations if it would keep me from dying from cancer.
Yeah, which is makes sense of why he's not, like, instantly telling, people of these, like, ghosts and shit that he's seeing in this house.
Well, one thing I do find interesting, though, about that is, like, you know, there has to be some part of this entity or this creepy ghost shit that's going on in this house that would have to be affecting the hallucination some because he never hallucinates anything good or anything neutral. It's always something like really scary.
Yeah.
Hallucinations, they don't typically just stay one path. You get, crazy, you get all kinds of stuff. You thought that chair was sitting over there. It's not, doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Um,
but in from his perspective, he doesn't know that. Like, it's
yeah.
probably freaking him out really bad too, thinking that this is the medication. He's probably warned ahead of time that this could very well cause him to start hallucinating shit, and that if so, say something immediately, and he, like you said, he probably doesn't wanna die. It's also important to note that at this point in the story in real life, none of the family really wanted to deal with him. Like, everybody avoided Matt at this point in the story because he was a fucking asshole to everybody.
Yeah.
Like, how he starts, like, harassing his younger siblings and stuff, that's how he was
He's
all the time.
being a bully.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next day, we see Matt at the hospital getting his chemo treatment where he begins to see crabs crawling on him, like crabs from the ocean. And I will agree, this seems like it's the medication because this
Yeah.
isn't scary. I mean, it's kind of scary,
Yeah,
but
it's
not scary
creepy.
scary. And also, he's not at the house right now. He's somewhere else.
Yeah,
Um,
another thing I think that was smart, them
yeah,
adding this in there.
that's another thing I didn't even pick up on until just now. But yeah, this immediately freaks him out, sending him into a panic when suddenly he is woken up by a nurse putting a needle into his arm. And as Matt tries to calm himself down, the man sitting next to him says, "It's okay, you were just having a bad dream." So he and Matt then begin having a friendly conversation when Matt then asks him if he ever sees anything that's not really there. This very nice older gentleman then tells him, yes, but don't tell the doctors that you are seeing things they won't understand. Because what he then explains is that because they are so close to death, that they are able to see things on the other side that healthy people can't. This does seem like it calms Matt down a bit when the man then tells him, if you ever want to talk, give me a call, as he then hands him his business card that says Reverend Nicholas Popshoe, which is going to be an important who is going to be an important side character in this story, who also has cancer. Did you recognize him? Because
No,
you brought
I've
him
seen
up a couple episodes ago. He is Casey from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
wow,
Yeah, that's him.
the Reverend?
Yep.
Wow, he got fucking old fast.
Well, I mean, Ninja Turtles came out
Jesus
in
Christ.
1990.
I know, but this kid, I mean, this was only 20 years later, and he got fucking old.
Yep, good old Casey. So we then jump to the next day where we see that Peter has went back to the other house for the week and Sarah now has returned to work, leaving Matt, Wendy, Billy, and Mary at the house alone where they decide to play a little game of hide and seek. Matt then begins counting as everyone goes to hide, and Wendy begins to look for everyone, he walks into one of the bedrooms where he is immediately pulled into another one of Jonah's flashbacks. We then see Jonah rush into his bedroom where he begins packing some of his belongings into a bag. And while he is getting his stuff ready to leave, we hear Ramsey angrily yelling his name from downstairs. Jonah rushes to the door, but right as he goes to open it, Ramsey comes up from behind, grabbing him and dragging him down into the embalming room in the basement. And the whole time this is going on, we hear Ramsey yelling, "You're not leaving," while Jonah continuously yells back, "I'm sorry." So obviously Ramsey is keeping him trapped here, and we will find out why in a little bit.
Yeah, it's clear that Jonas has some type of medium abilities. One thing that I don't know if you explain it anywhere in your notes, but I guess his way of contacting, which is a real life thing, or at least it's debated in real life, is through ectoplasm, ectoplasma,
Yeah, ectoplasm.
which is essentially a form of they would take pictures during these seances, and they would have all these crazy like spirits and stuff coming out of this medium. So that is clearly his medium superpower, and he is obviously does not want to be doing these things.
So Matt then chases after them, but once he enters into the embalming room, the door slams shut behind him, where he immediately notices that there are now 5 or 6 dead bodies in this room. And as he stands there in shock, some of the bodies begin to twitch. We then get a couple of close-up shots of the corpses where we see that Ramsey has carved all of these words into their skin all over their bodies. And I gotta say, these bodies covered in all these words, one of the coolest parts of this movie. Very creepy. I love it. Love the imagery with these guys.
Yeah, they did a fucking fantastic job with all the corpses
Yeah,
in this movie and the carving up. Apparently, they studied like a bunch of books, old texts. It's like a mix of like Latin and Greek.
don't read the Latin. It's
Now,
never good. So once Matt sees this, he begins freaking out and calling for his cousin Wendy to come down and help him. When suddenly we see that as Matt stands there in the basement, he is surrounded by these corpses and they look scary as fuck. 10 out of 10 on the makeup and costume design.
yeah, I fucking loved the practical effects and makeup. It just shit's awesome looking. Probably one of the coolest scenes of the movie.
These are some of the coolest like ghosts I've ever seen.
Yeah.
They're awesome. So yeah, as Matt stands there, frozen in fear, these creepy ass dead bodies who look super pissed off are just standing there in Matt's face. And finally, Matt just can't take it anymore. He loses it and he just shoves the shit out of one of these corpses as he yells, "Leave me alone." And it is at this point where he snaps back to reality and realizes that he just shoved his little brother Billy, as we see he is now surrounded by Billy, Wendy, and Mary. So obviously here, Matt's relationship with his family is now starting to really suffer because of these visions and stuff. And at this point, Matt has finally had enough of trying to deal with this on his own. So he picks up the phone and he calls Reverend Nick, who is more than happy to hear from Matt, as we then go into a little montage of Nick explaining in a little more detail what they were talking about at the hospital. And basically, what he says here is that the living and the dead are separated by this invisible wall. They can't really see each other. They can't really communicate. But people like him and Matt, who have one foot in the grave and one foot still in the world of the living, can kind of access both sides. And Matt's like, okay, that makes sense. But what do we do about these visions? And Nick tells him that he has to find out what Jonah wants from him. And now we are starting to see that, we're moving into the plot of like, you got to help the ghost deal with the unfinished business stuff. It's like ghost trauma. That's what it is.
It
Ghost
is
trauma.
ghost trauma.
Yep.
They have ghost PTSD, ghost trauma.
Yeah, this is one of the plot points that, like, when I watched it, because I haven't watched this movie, I don't think, since, like, maybe 2 years after it had come out, and when I was watching it Monday, and I was like, "Oh, damn, I was really hoping we weren't gonna go down that path."
They should have a ghost psychiatrist, not a g
No, a
a
psychic
a
therapist.
human psychiatrist who has cancer that's about to die, that can see these things because he has 1 foot in the grave, and he can go, like, talk to people.
Yeah.
Maybe he has to constantly, like, ingest just enough poison to be almost dead, but you could make a lot of money. A lot of money, cleansing houses of ghosts.
The ghost is like, "I'm depressed, I feel like I have nothing to live for," and therapist's like, "Well, you aren't living anyway."
Yeah. How do I break the news?
Oh, yeah. Are you aware that you're dead?
You're gonna
Let's
be
cross that bridge first.
really, well, I mean, they probably would be depressed, even being aware that they're dead if they're stuck in this house, which is what we learn is a thing in this movie. Like, these souls are
Uh-huh.
trapped. So, yeah, that would be pretty depressing. You
Yeah.
can't ever go anywhere.
This stuff here in this movie really reminded me of Murder House. We have a very similar house. The people that die that they're stuck there. They're pissed off that they're stuck there. They're always fucking with the living people. Yeah, very very Murder House.
Another thing about Murder House too is that house almost was a character in itself. It had a lot of character.
Yeah, I look at Murder House as kind of a character. Yeah,
And this movie does a really good job at showing that. Like, for me, the house felt like its own character. Like,
yeah.
the difference in the upstairs and then when they go downstairs in the basement, the decisions that they made from a cinematography standpoint to show the differences, I thought were really genius decision.
So after his meeting with Reverend Nick, we then see Matt head down to his basement room where he begins trying to do some sit ups. The cancer is really taking a toll on his body, so he's trying to stay in somewhat good shape.
God, he's gotta beat these ghosts' ass,
Gotta beat,
man.
yeah, he's like, I could help him or I can beat him up.
I gotta beat him up. I don't know what's going on here.
So, right as Matt is doing one of these sit ups, he comes face to face with a burnt black ghost who does not look happy to see him. But he decides that instead of freaking out, he's going to follow Reverend Nick's advice as he then looks at this ghost and asks him what he wants. And then we see Matt suddenly grab his head in pain as he begins seeing these painful visions of this corpse who's got all of these like words carved into him, burning in a big fire. And this doesn't make really any sense to us or Matt right now, but it'll come back later. Yeah, one thing that doesn't annoy me about a lot of ghost movies is like every ghost movie when you're dealing with ghost trauma, why does the ghost always have to give you like random ass clues as to how to help them? Like it's like pieces like a fucked up puzzle that you got to figure out. Like just tell me. Just come right out and just tell me. Like why do I have to investigate all this shit?
Well, I don't know. Maybe the ghosts don't, like, are not fully aware that they can just communicate with you.
They have like a 2 word a day limit. So
Well, they see people all the time, and probably for, 50 or 60 years, nobody has been able to understand them or see them or communicate with them in any way. So, you probably you wouldn't try to communicate at first. You wouldn't know to try to communicate. Or in this movie situation, maybe there's a specific reason why he doesn't want to communicate and tip off maybe some other spirits in this house.
I would just like to see like one ghost movie where the guy's like, "Okay, how can I help you move to the other side?" And the ghost's like, "Go ahead and grab a pen and piece of paper. And then we'll go through it one at a time. So first I need you to do this.
That's
And
like
then
Murder House.
and then I need you to go to the library. I need you to research the history of this house because I can't explain it all. Yeah, that would just be good.
Well, the Ghost in Murder House talk.
They do, yeah.
They straight up, like, have a whole conversation.
Yeah. So a little while later, we see Sarah and the kids return from the movies when suddenly Billy and Mary stop in their tracks and yell for Sarah to come quick because obviously they just walked in on some wild ass shit. And when Sarah walks into the room, she immediately sees a ton of the furniture stacked up in the dining room. And as she walks around this big pile of chairs and shit, she spots Matt curled up in the corner, crying, holding out his now bloody hands. And as she bends down to help him, we see that he has scratched this wall with his fingers to the point where his nails have like broke off and the skin has begun bleeding. It's very similar to like when you lock a dog in like a garage or something and the dog like scratches the fuck out of the door wanting back in. That's pretty much what he did.
This always, like, reminds me of scene in the original Amityville Horror where the girl's, like, locked in the closet, or,
Oh
the
yeah, yeah, she
the
does that too. Yeah.
yeah, or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, just when the nails, like, they're showing the nails,
Yeah,
like, break
breaking.
off at
Yeah.
the on the wall. This is a good example of the type of shit that Matt was doing in real life, that the family was really scared of him over, and the stepdad, Peter, that was a lot of, like in the guy who plays Peter did such a good job at playing, like, this dad who's put in this awful fucking situation, whereas the mom is really looking out for Matt and Matt's well-being because he's dying and he has cancer. She kind of ignores the other kids, and that
Fuck them kids.
Peter kinda sees Matt as a danger to the other kids at this point, because this is a good situation, an example of why he would see him as dangerous. You know, he's hallucinating all this stuff, he's doing crazy shit, he's, like, bullying the kids. I think the guy who plays Peter did an amazing job at playing this part of, like, 2 parents kinda both in a really fucked up situation,
They're
and
yeah,
he's trying to look out for the rest of the family while she has kind of put their well-being aside for Matt.
yeah, they're both in the same exact situation, but they're the main thing that's important to them is different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and Peter is also, he has, because they kinda make him out to be an asshole in this movie. I mean, they do, like, he breaks down at one point, he does some asshole shit, but in reality, this is a guy who obviously deeply cares about his family. He has moved from New York to Connecticut. He's gone all week working. He only sees his family during the weekend. He is now paying for a mortgage and rent, plus trying to support a very big family. And all this stress he's going through, his stepson's like about to die, got cancer. He's worried about the well-being of his other kids when he's not there. And on top of that, he's dealing with like this alcoholism that he has conquered but still struggles with. Yeah, it's the immense amount of stress and pressure on you in this situation in real life would be insane. And I think this guy does a really good job at playing through that in this character.
So she then rushes him to the hospital, where we then jump to the next day, where we see Sarah and Peter talking to Matt's doctor. And the doctor explains that all the scans and stuff came back normal, and he can confidently say that this is not the cancer medication or treatment that is causing this issue with Matt. And you can tell that Peter is not very satisfied with this answer, and even tells the doctor that Matt's whole entire family is scared of him. We then cut to Peter and Sarah in the hospital parking lot, where Sarah can see that Peter's in a mood. And this is where she notices that he is walking towards this rusty ass piece of shit car. And she asks him what happened to his super fancy restored old truck that he loves so much. And this is where he tells her that he had to sell it in order to pay the rent, the mortgage, and the rest of the bills. because obviously the financial pressure of this situation is starting to fuck with Peter. We then jump to later that night where we see Peter at the old house, and it appears that he has relapsed because we see him looking at old photos of Matt as a kid while a mostly empty bottle of vodka sits next to him on the table. And after a trip down memory lane, we catch Peter do his best Kurt Cobain impression as he begins destroying all of his musical instruments. So later that night, we see Matt asleep in his basement bedroom when suddenly we see this dark, shadowy figure kind of lean over him and growl as it slowly leans in, possessing his body. And the very next day, we see Matt's interactions with his family have gotten a little weird. He's kind of acting like an asshole to Wendy, Billy, and Mary. He's definitely not acting like his normal self, and it is getting to the point where they are kind of scared of him, and Wendy appears to be on edge every time Matt comes around. So next we see Wendy, Billy, and Mary decide to play another game of hide and go seek in the house, without Matt, I may add. And we see Billy go hide in the dumbwaiter in the hallway, while Mary goes up to the attic. Now, as Billy sits there quietly waiting to be found, we suddenly notice a dark black silhouette of a boy behind him. This creepy demonic ghost thing then starts kind of growling and making these noises, which causes Billy to slowly turn around, where he sees this thing, freaks the fuck out, and tries to take off running, but unfortunately finds that the door will not open. And at the same time that this happens, we see Mary up in the attic fall through part of the wooden floor, which kind of traps her leg there, prompting her to scream for help. So now that we have both kids freaking out and screaming, we see Wendy run to the rescue where she opens the door, letting Billy out, and then her, Billy, and Matt all run to the attic to help Mary, where they find her stuck in the floor. So Matt ends up helping Mary get free, which we find out that she didn't get hurt. She just is kind of a little freaked out. But after Matt pulls her leg from the hole, he notices something under the floorboard. He then sticks his hand in there where he pulls out an old dusty metal box along with a bundled up stack of photos.
Yeah, at this point, if I was Matt, I'd be really confused at what is the medication, what's not, because he's having these hallucinations outside of the house too. It would be at this point, whenever I was 100% convinced that I was experiencing paranormal shit, not just hallucinations.
Well,
Because he
yeah,
finds the picture of
yeah,
Jonas.
that's a huge coincidence for that to just be a coincidence.
Yeah, there's no way your brain would make up in a hallucination this kid who you just happened to find pictures of that you never knew existed. So, yeah, this would be the moment if I was Matt where I would be like, okay, something's going down. I've got to share this with somebody because it's not just my medication, which he does. And I think that's more proof that even Matt throughout this movie still thinks, even when shit's at its craziest, that this could partially be his treatment medication, and he's scared they're going to take him off of it.
So Wendy and Matt then take the box and photos downstairs and begin looking at them. And right off the bat, Matt opens up the metal box where he discovers a bunch of small, little dried up pieces of something, which we quickly find out is the eyelids of the corpses that we've seen in the flashback. They then start looking through the photos of these seances, which depicts a young man possessed with this photoplasm looking stuff coming out of his mouth. Like it's that
Ectoplasm.
ecto. Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe as a typo.
I did this. I Googled it
yeah.
as photoplasm, and then it came up when I was looking it up as ectoplasm.
It's weird. Like it's super hard to describe what this stuff looks like. It's like a long strand of jelly. Is kind of what it looks like.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of real life pictures of this shit from back in the day, and a lot of people have debated and debunked that it was, mediums faking these pictures, and there's a lot of really cool, creepy pictures, though.
Yeah, I once watched a little documentary or something about him, and it was talking about how the ones that were faked, it was discovered that they would use cheesecloth. I don't really know what cheesecloth is, but apparently that is what's in a lot of these pictures. They in the documentary they talked about it. I don't remember, but I just remember it being cheesecloth because I was like, "What the fuck is that?"
I know they use cheesecloth and some, like, woodworking type shit,
Thought it was
to, like, wipe shit down.
clean your cheese.
Yeah, ooh, from under cheese. That's not the kind of cheese you wanna put on your cloth.
No. While looking at these pictures, Matt recognizes Jonah, the guy that he keeps seeing in his visions, as the young man leading this seance. Wendy then asks him, like, what the hell's going on? And Matt explains that he thought he was just hallucinating from the medication, but he has seen this exact kid every day since they moved into this house. And he also explains that he wakes up in the middle of the night and it feels like this guy has been inside of his body. It's funny, I said he's been inside of me, looking through his eyes, not in a
Damn.
sexual way.
Damn, Jonas. What kind of dreams are you having?
Yeah. So after Matt drops this bit of information on Wendy, she then decides to help him find out what is going on in this house. And this is where we get a research montage of Wendy at the library looking through the books and the old newspapers and gathering information.
This is a staple of paranormal movies.
I fucking love research montages. This is my jam, man.
One thing I hate about research montages is they're never that easy.
No, they're totally not realistic.
They always have it like you just go down to your local library and you pull the blueprints of houses and like every
person that
article,
died is
it's not that easy.
No. Your local library does not have every bit of history on every house and every person and every funeral home and funeral director just at their fingertips. Like, that's not how that works at all.
No, but I will say Wendy is a fucking MVP cousin.
Yeah.
Because she went through all this shit just based off of Matt telling her this for the first time.
I think I really like research montages because it's like that you're about to get like the meat and potatoes of the story afterwards.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is because like you see them do the research and you're like, yeah, that's awesome. And then as soon as the montage is over, it's like, okay, all them questions that you had, here's a bunch of answers.
It's like doing the research without actually having to go through the work of doing the research.
Oh yeah, I wish I could do that.
You're watching somebody do it, and you're watching a movie, and you're like, you're in the movie, but you don't have to go through all the work to find out all these questions you have.
But you experienced it.
You experienced it.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'll do. Like every week I'll write the episode. I'll just go down to the local library and just, pull every bit of information on this movie, out of old newspaper articles and random books and shit. Yeah, that's the key. That's the key. It'd take me 30 seconds.
Go to the library.
So after she finishes up at the library, she then heads back home where she begins to tell Matt what she found. And she explains that the house that they are living in right now used to be a mortuary that belonged to Ramsey Aikman. And Mr. Aikman here had an interesting hobby, psychic research.
And cheesecloth.
And cleaning psychics off with cheesecloths. Which is where our creepy little friend Jonah here comes into play. Because not only was Jonah was Ramsey's assistant, but he was also a psychic, which gave them the ability to contact the dead. Hence why Jonah was in the pictures leading the seance. So once Ramsey discovers Jonah's ability, he begins putting ads in the newspaper in order to bring people in where they would pay money for Jonah to contact their dead relatives. So he was obviously exploiting Jonah for financial benefit.
Yeah, and that makes me think, out of all the people that the bodies that you took that end up in this house, was your funeral home not making enough money where you had to exploit this kid for like, the money that he was making off the funeral home should have been plenty of money.
Especially
So,
back then, I mean, you die from diarrhea.
yeah, so you gotta think he just had an evil streak to him.
Yeah, it's like,
Like
oh,
like, he was just a bad person because it couldn't be purely financial why he would go through all this stuff.
so old James over there got pink eye and passed away on Tuesday. I mean, people back then there died all kinds of shit. Oh man. So
That
then
TB, man, that T-Birk
that T-Bird killed a
took
lot
a
of
lot
people.
of
Yeah.
people out.
Yeah.
I bet you this guy loved the T-Birk.
Yeah. So then one day, Ramsey claims that he discovered how to amplify the seances, which means that they would no longer just be able to contact the dead, they would also be able to make things appear in person, which is the ectoplasm we saw in the photos. I typed it out ectoplasm here, so I must have typoed earlier. I didn't catch it. I'll be fired. Which I just want to point out, if I'm paying to get into contact with my dead mom or dad or, whoever, I'm not paying extra just to see this kid puke up gravity-defying jelly. Like, I don't
Well,
see what.
maybe the jelly turns into your mom or dad,
Yeah,
which
but they don't
it's
show they
even
don't show any of that. Like, it's just the jelly comes out of his mouth.
neither does all the old pictures, but that's just because we never actually got the climax. We
Maybe.
never get to see the climax, but, I mean, how much extra would you pay to see a vomit jelly version of your parent form in front of you and speak to you?
I'd pay extra if that happened. I'm just not paying extra to watch this big old, strand of jelly hanging out of his mouth and him, like, in pain. That's
Yeah.
all we see. So anyway, Wendy then goes on to explain that this psychic kid's ability to not only talk to the dead, but also puke out this ectoplasm begins spreading around to all the big shots in the country. People then came from all over to see this, which meant that Jonah was having to do this shit like every night. So after this goes on for a while, we then get to the night everything changed. So Ramsey set up another seance just like normal. But the next day, the police find Ramsey and the 4 people involved in the seance all dead from an unknown cause. And the weirdest part is that Jonas was nowhere to be found and has never been seen again after this night. And finally, the icing on this creepy ass cake is that years later, in the 1950s, they were doing road construction, and when they went to tear up this cemetery, they discovered that there were no bodies in the coffins, and all they had been filled with was sandbags. And to this day, nobody knows why or where those bodies ended up. So after Wendy finishes explaining to Matt what she discovered, Matt is kind of dumbfounded by this and doesn't know what to think about it all. But he does have an idea of who to ask, and we then see him call up Reverend Nick to come over and help them figure this out.
Why did Wendy pull this article of these missing, I think it's 100, it's like 100 graves that they assumed that grave robbers had hit. So that was written up in the paper. Like, grave robbers had taken these, like, 100 bodies that they went to go move and the coffins were empty. Why did she pull that article with the information that Matt gave her?
Well,
Like,
obviously, research montage.
yeah,
Like,
obviously.
you don't find things in research montage, they come to you.
Yeah, she's like, so I have all this information, like this boy you're seeing's like, this is what they're doing to him. And, they did the seance and a bunch of people died and he went missing. And then also across town here, years later, 100 bodies came up missing. But
And it's
that's
totally
it.
connected.
Yeah,
How? I don't know, but the library told me it was.
because montages, that's why.
So after Nick looks through the photos, he then tells Wendy and Matt that he actually does have experience with this ectoplasm stuff. Most of the evidence he has seen has been fake, but he has seen the real thing in real life. And this is where he informs them that this psychic Jonah must have been very, very powerful. So Nick then starts going through the other stuff in the box where he quickly discovers the old dried up eyelids. He then explains that this part of the practice of necromancy and something that they call corpse bothering, where the bodies of the dead are used to get more power. He also explains that the reason that Ramsey cut the eyelids off was because when you typically lay someone to rest, you close their eyelids. But if you remove those eyelids, the dead can never fully rest, which allowed Ramsey to use these dead people as guardians of the house. And after discussing it a little bit with Wendy and Matt, Nick tells them that the bodies have to still be here at the home, most likely buried somewhere out in the yard. Spoiler alert, they're definitely not fucking buried out in the yard. Their location is much, much more grim than that.
And you know you're dealing with somebody like really fucked up when they cut the eyelids from dead people just so they can't rest in peace.
Yeah, what a bastard. Obviously, and honestly, Ramsey looks like a bastard too. Like he
Oh
definitely,
yeah.
yeah, he definitely has the look
He
of he's
looks
just a son of a bitch.
like he should have been in like American Horror Story
Yes.
Asylum.
Yeah. Oh, I was literally gonna say Asylum as soon as you finished. Yeah.
He's like the old guy in Asylum
Yeah.
that does all that fucked up ass shit.
So Nick then recommends that maybe praying for these trap souls will help the situation, but right as him, Wendy, and Matt join hands, we see Matt get sucked back into another one of Jonah's flashbacks of these crazy ass seances. And this is where we actually get to see this ectoplasm stuff coming out of Jonah's mouth. And I will say, it does not look like Jonah is having a good time.
No, no, it does not.
I also will
And
say the ectoplasm looks super CGI, and it is one of the things I actually don't like about the movie.
yeah,
It,
yeah, they do CGI this,
it's
but
yeah.
I give them credit as much stuff that could have been CGI'd in this movie that they did in practical effect. I will give them a pass on the ectoplasm because I don't know how you would do that in practical effect.
No,
That would be really, really difficult to pull off.
unless you got cheesecloth. Yep.
Yeah, but
I d-
that's even for a picture, like a picture and a camera that has like 2 megapixels.
I don't knock them for not doing this practically. I get it, but in 2009 we had already had the movie Transformers. We had there you could have good CGI, and I feel like they just rushed this. They just I wish they would have spent more time on it, especially considering like this is on the cover of the movie, and every time I see the cover of the movie, it looks CGI on the cover too.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is why we end up making our own cover art for this episode because I didn't. I thought that the ghosts were scarier, so go with that. And I just don't like the ectoplasm CGI stuff. So,
and also it's worth mentioning that no, Reverend, praying will not fix this situation.
no, sir, this is far beyond that. So while Matt is stuck in this kind of flashback thing, we see Nick jump up and attempt to help him, but we quickly see that this is the last seance where everything went wrong as we see the ectoplasm in Jonah's mouth it starts like going crazy when suddenly a big explosion happens, like the ectoplasm literally blows up, which launches Matt back into present time. And right as this happens, Sarah arrives home from work where she immediately gets super pissed about this strange man in her house, hanging out with her teenage son and niece. And as Nick tries to explain that he's a reverend who knows Matt from the hospital and he was invited here to help, Sarah says she doesn't give a fuck and kicks him out.
That would make
But
it worse for me.
Oh, that like I'm a
That
reverend
is
from
a
the hospital?
reverend.
Okay.
I'd be like, we know it, priest do.
Yeah.
It's no, I don't,
He's too
no.
old for you, Reverend. He's already in high school. But as Nick is heading towards the door, he starts to tell Sarah that he thinks there's something evil in the house that wants to get Matt because he is so close to death. And this actually makes her even more mad where she's like, he's not. Get the fuck out of my house. She's very much in denial.
She is very much in denial. Maybe she could pray about it. Maybe the reverend should have told her, hey, why don't you just pray on it for a second?
So we then skip to later that night, but we see everyone is in bed and we cut to Wendy's room where we see she's fast asleep. And after being woken up by a bunch of, I think it's bats. Is it bats or birds? I think it's like a bunch of bats flying around her room.
Birds.
It's birds? Well, yeah, a bunch of something flying around her room. She gets her first jump scare from the burnt black silhouette ghost. It's the first time she's experienced anything, and now she knows that Matt is for sure telling the truth.
Yeah, the cinematography on this shot too, like you can see like slight movement by the door when they're doing the shot of her like waking up in the bed. Super creepy.
Yeah,
And definitely birds, and I'll get into why they're birds in a little bit.
so right after that, we then cut over to Sarah's room where she is also fast asleep when she is then awoken by hearing someone walking around in the room who she at first assumes is her husband, Peter. But as she gets up and flips the light on to see who it is, she is confronted by one of these corpse ghosts staring her right in the face. This is a really good jump scare. This is one of the best jump scares in the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I love this one.
He's super fucking creepy
Yeah, he
looking
is.
too, man. All the ghosts are just 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Fucking scary as shit. Like, if I woke up and seen, like, a regular ghost, I'd be pretty freaked out. But if I woke up and seen this shit, I would probably run into the wall. Like,
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
wall was closest to behind me, because I would jump in that direction so fucking fast.
Yeah, they are, they look awesome. They just look awesome. So this, of course, freaks Sarah out, but before she really gets a chance to digest what just occurred, we see a very drunk Peter pull up to the Connecticut house, and he is not a happy drunk. And what really kicks this thing off is when he gets out of the car, he notices that a lot of the lights in the house are on, which, because of the very tight financial situation, causes him to get very upset about the waste of money. He then bursts through the door screaming and yelling, waking everybody up, and Sarah immediately recognizes that he is drunk. Obviously, she has been through this many, many times before. You probably had the same reaction, but this scene kind of hits home because
Yes.
we've had some alcoholics in our family, and this is very accurate, I would say.
This is such a angry alcoholic thing to do, to come home and remove all the light bulbs and break them. Like, yes, this definitely hit close to home. And it was whoever wrote this scene definitely hit close to home for them too.
Yeah. Fun fact, this is another thing that apparently happened in real life.
The actor that played Peter got super drunk and did the scene.
No, the real Peter.
He did a really good job at that, the actor, at just playing an angry drunk.
Yeah, he did. He did a good job. But yeah, the dad actually went into the house and and shattered every fucking light bulb in the house.
Well, that's why it was so accurate.
So after Peter finishes his rampage on the light bulbs, he then goes to leave when Sarah runs out after him and basically tells him to get it to fucking together. And if he ever goes out and gets drunk again, he better not come back to the house, which is also something we've heard some family members say to other alcoholics. So later on, we see that everybody has finally went back to bed when they are all suddenly awoken by these crazy, creepy sounding noises throughout the house. And out of nowhere, the lights start like shooting electricity into the air, and it's just like all kinds of crazy shit. It's very similar to like the poltergeist.
This is a very, very poltergeist scene.
Yes.
I can definitely agree with you there. Like the whole lightning coming through the fucking empty light sockets and lighting everything up blue while the doors are slamming. Yes, very, very poltergeist feel.
So everybody wakes up to this crazy ass ordeal, and they all run upstairs to Sarah's room where they pile on the bed together and wait for this to stop. So after this nightmare of a night, we then immediately skip to the next night where we see that Sarah has finally jumped onto the this shit is fucked train as she calls over Reverend Nick asking for his help and telling him that she doesn't know who else to turn to. One thing that I was curious about is Nick pulls out his crucifix and we find out that this is made out of iron magnet. And he makes the statement that the whole reason prisons have iron bars is to not only contain the body, but also contain the evil spirit within. And I wonder if that's true. I've never heard that, but that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, we'll have to Google that. It's like a Faraday cage for ghosts.
Yeah,
It's like a reverse
that's a
Faraday
great
cage.
way to put that. But yeah, I'm planning to look into that. I didn't get a chance to Google it, but I definitely want to know if that's an actual thing 'cause that's interesting.
That seems like a thing that they would do back in the day.
100%, yeah. So Nick then explains to Sarah that he is going to attempt to locate Jonah's body because apparently when a vengeful spirit passes and it can't find its way out towards the afterlife, this causes it to become trapped in the home and very angry. And if he can find the remains, he can remove it from the house, which will then free the spirit and everything will go back to normal. So during this search, he is then slowly drawn towards Matt's basement bedroom, where he immediately spots the burnt black silhouette ghost. Also, while this is going on, we see that Matt is laying in bed in really bad shape. So Sarah then runs over to tend to Matt while Nick is drawn into this embalming room, and he pretty quickly figures out that this ghost's remains are trapped inside the cremation oven. But he isn't able to get to the remains because the oven door begins slamming over and over again, causing Nick to try and find another way in. And as all this is going on, we start to see everything in the house slamming and flickering. So, needless to say, this ghost is getting super pissed off. So, Nick ends up finding a way into the back of the oven, and when he reaches in, he immediately finds the remains that he has been looking for. And as soon as he picks up one of the little bones, we see everything in the house start to calm down. Doesn't stop, but the doors and stuff stop slamming. Nick then begins to use his hands to scoop out all of the ashes left in the oven, placing them in like a silk piece of fabric. And as he is attempting to get the remains out of the house, we see this burnt, scary looking ghost slowly creep up behind Sarah and Matt. But right before he gets to them, Nick is able to crawl out of the back door into the backyard, which instantly stops everything. So now that everything is calmed down, we see Nick place the bag of remains in the backseat of his car as Sarah comes out to talk to him. And she immediately asks him if it's all over, to which he tells her yes, everything should be fine, but you may still experience some weird stuff for a day or two, but it will go away.
So when we have all this stuff going on, we have all these birds, like a lot of birds in the house. So when he gets this soul outside, he makes the comment like you're for free, free as a bird. And then we get like hundreds of birds. Like they even show the outside shot of the shadow of all the birds like flying throughout the house like they're trapped.
Yeah.
So the birds symbolize and it kind of gives us a little hint that the Reverend is wrong, that these birds represent all these trapped spirits. And he like literally releases this one spirit and thinks it's all over and he's like, you're free as a bird now. So metaphorically, they show all these birds to show that he literally freed one of like 100 trapped spirits.
Yeah, only 89 more to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool that they added the birds in there and they used them throughout the rest of the movie. and it's to symbolize those other trapped spirits that are essentially birds in cages.
Once again, right over my head. Did not catch any of that at all. Yeah, I'm glad you've seen this movie a ton because there was a lot of stuff apparently I just did not catch.
That's my first time catching
Mm.
the bird reference.
So they then say goodbye and hug as Nick then gets in his car and drives off. And this is our fake out ending because guess what? This shit is not over. So a couple hours later, we see Sarah sitting upstairs talking to Wendy, Billy, and Mary about everything that has happened. And she explains to them that it is now all finally over. And while this is going on, we jump down to the basement where we see Matt wake up covered in words carved into his skin all over his body, just like Ramsey used to do to the dead bodies. So obviously, he starts freaking out, which causes Sarah to run downstairs. And when she sees all these bloody words all over him, she immediately yells, "What have you done to yourself?" Where we then jump to Matt, strapped down, being loaded into an ambulance. And needless to say, the paramedics are dumbfounded as they look at his wounds.
Yeah, I think this is symbolizes how close to death he is at this point in the movie.
They're able to
And
actually do shit to
well,
him.
this guy is, and also it's a combination of how close to death he is, but also Jonas is now not there to protect
Yeah, oh,
him
yeah, yeah.
anymore.
That's true.
Like Jonas has been removed from the house, so now this kid's so close to death, he can now start carving on him like he did these dead bodies.
We then cut over to Nick, who is driving down the road when he looks into his rearview mirror and suddenly sees the burnt black ghost sitting right behind him in the back seat. This ends up causing Nick to swerve off of the side of the road and almost wreck. But when he stops the car and he turns to look back, this is where it is revealed that the burnt black ghost is, in fact, Jonah, because Jonah was murdered. We then jump on over to Matt, who we now see in a psychiatric hospital because they obviously think he has lost his fucking mind, which in fact did really happen to the real Matt. His
Yeah.
mom committed him to the psychiatric hospital.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, like we're at the end of the movie where he is in the hospital and he is being committed. It wasn't until after he was committed into the hospital and no longer living in the house that the Warrens were even brought in on this.
Mm.
So the whole accounts with the Warrens and the book and all that, I don't let that kind of dread at all on the movie because we know all the like seance stuff and all that was kind of added in there for movie's sake to make a story out of it. But a lot of the ghost interactions and stuff were actually taken from so-called real accounts from the actual family members, not from this book that was, made to be way overly dramatic by the Warrens.
I mean, I'll just, kind of slightly put my opinion out there. I don't think super highly of the Warrens. There is a ton of really shady, like some of their biggest cases, a lot of people have come out afterwards and said, yeah, dude, like they were all about making money and exploiting these stories. And, they may not have started out like that, but I 100% think they ended up like that.
Oh, yeah, I have no doubt that they had people write these stories as way over the top for money.
Well, here's one of the interesting things I actually found about this book is the Warrens actually, they went after I can't remember the author's name, but they contacted him about writing the book. He was a fiction writer, had never wrote a nonfiction book in his life. So to me, my personal theory is they went out and found somebody who could make up a story. Yeah, he has like actual events to add in there, but the Warrens need this to be like a movie story to really get the money out of it. And then I found out from the author that one of the things he was pissed about was in his contract with the Warrens, they had snuck a little thing in there where it said he could not make any money off of anything, movie or show based off this book. Only the Warrens could. And that also pertained to the family as well. So the Warrens kind of swooped in
Cut
and
everybody out.
yeah, swooped in and got the money out of it and then moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, hopefully they made some money off of this movie because they did directly work with them in writing this movie. And, what they did with that book was no different than what the movie did, is essentially take these ghost accounts and, make them way more dramatic and, for entertainment purposes. But the difference is the movie, it's a movie. It's a fictional movie based off of actual events, whereas the book was written as actual, true, 100% true events.
well, I almost wonder if that's why they credit the documentary for inspiring the movie, is it's kind of a loophole to get out of that contract of anything from the book would have to go to the Warrens.
Yeah, I
Because
could.
the documentary is listed as the primary inspiration for the movie.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. The people who made this movie also didn't cut the family out for money.
yeah.
Like they actually included them in writing the story, and I'm sure paid them for it.
So we then see that he is sitting on the bed. The ghost of Jonah comes walking into the room. And when Matt stands up to face him, we instantly jump into a flashback/vision, which picks up right after the previous one where we saw the ectoplasm basically explode into a ball of fire. So Jonah wakes up on the floor, and as he gets up, he looks around where he notices that everybody else in the room has been burnt to a crisp. Before he really gets a chance to piece together what happened, he starts getting chased through the house by whatever evil entity that Ramsey has conjured up here. After getting blocked off from the door, he then runs to the hallway where he uses the dumbwaiter to lower himself down into the basement, but the dumbwaiter doesn't just lead to the basement. It leads to the cremation oven, which he then gets trapped inside of and burnt alive by this evil entity. And this is where it is revealed to not just Matt, but to also Nick, that the trapped spirit of Jonah was not there to harm this family, but he was actually there protecting them from the evil entity that now occupies the house thanks to Ramsey's dumbass. And it is at this point where Nick realizes he just fucked up by removing Jonas's remains, because that now leaves the rest of the family vulnerable and in danger to this evil entity, prompting him to turn back around and head back towards the house. And speaking of the house, we then skip over there where we see Wendy watching Billy and Mary, and as she starts eating an apple, she realizes that it is very rotten, prompting her to open up the refrigerator, where it is revealed that all of their food is extremely gross and now rotten. Another thing that allegedly happened in the real case. So she then bags up all the old nasty food and throws it away, where we then see her head upstairs to take a shower. And as she is finishing up, she cuts the water off. We then see the shower curtain very tightly wrap around her body, causing her to fall out of the tub, where thankfully she is able to pull the curtain away from her face and catch her breath. Apparently, this is also something that would happen to the real family members. It happened multiple times, apparently.
Yeah, this would be terrifying.
Yeah, I believe it happened mostly to the mom, though.
Yeah. Anytime my shower curtain tries to kill me, it is not a good day.
Nope, just take a bath.
Also, what a major fuck up by the Reverend. Out of all the souls to free, you freed the one that was protecting the family.
Yeah, the only good one out of the 89 here.
Should have probably prayed a little bit more about that before you made that decision.
So we then head back over to the hospital, where we see Peter and Sarah waiting to talk to Matt's doctor. And when he comes in, he breaks the bad news to them that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Matt's cell count went to shit and he might not even make it through the night. After briefly absorbing this awful news, Sarah and Peter go to see him in his room, but when they open the door, they find that the window is broken open and Matt is nowhere to be found. We then jump back over to the house where we see Wendy head out to the backyard in order to pull the sheets off the clothesline when she suddenly freezes as she notices Matt quickly walking towards her holding an axe. And of course, this freaks her the fuck out where she quickly runs inside and locks the door because she now believes that Matt is here to kill them. But much like Jack Torrance, Matt proves that locked doors are no match for a determined man and his axe as he begins chopping through the wood where he quickly gains entry inside the home. After realizing Matt has found his way inside, Wendy runs into the dining room to get the kids, but when she turns around, Matt quickly runs up to her, but he doesn't swing the axe at her, he plants it firmly into the dining room wall. And after 2 or 3 chops, we see as the wood falls to the floor, the face of one of the dead bodies that Ramsey carved the words into, aka the ones he made guardians of the house and the ones Jonah was protecting them from.
I wonder if the axe through the door and almost into her face was a ode
Shining,
to The
Shining Room, yeah.
Shining because her name was Wendy too.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, so both Wendys got an axe to the door and it almost went in their face.
Wow.
So I definitely, now that I thought of that just now, think that that was an ode to The Shining.
Definitely could have been. So once Matt discovers this, he then grabs Wendy and the kids and literally drags them to the front door, forcing them out onto the porch. And right before he slams the door, locking them out, he tells Wendy, "Do not let them put the fire out. I'm already dead." Matt then heads back to the dining room where he grabs the axe and begins destroying the walls. And as he is doing this, we just see body after body after body fall out of the walls. So this whole time, they have been eating dinner like 10 feet away from like fucking 30 dead rotting corpses. Wow.
This fucking scene's awesome. This is the
Yeah.
other scene I always think about when I think back at this movie.
This is
is
probably the best
literally-
scene in the movie.
Yeah, the fucking bodies falling out of the walls as he's chopping the shit up is just awesome. And all of the bodies, all of them look great.
Yeah.
Like they literally had to spend so much time doing all these symbols on the bodies because I seen the behind the scenes of how they had to do it, and it was almost like stick on tattoos.
Oh, yeah,
but
because they had to do so many,
Yeah,
yeah.
they would cut them in like 10 letters at a time and literally do them across the fake bodies. So yeah,
That's cool.
super impressive.
So after he destroys everything and gets all of the hidden bodies out into the open, he then heads down to the embalming room, grabbing a bunch of the flammable liquids, and he uses those to pour all over the floor and the bodies in order to set everything on fire. And while this is happening, we see that Jonah is still inhabiting Matt's body here. So the place is now starting to catch on fire, and a very determined and angry Matt then begins throwing all of the old pictures and eyelids and stuff they found on the floor into the flames. We then start to see the flames of the fire get bigger and bigger, where we actually see it burn away the wallpaper, revealing that Ramsey had painted those like weird spells. I assume that's what they are, that he carved into like the skin of the bodies. He painted it all over the walls and ceiling of this house.
I would imagine that's what's sealing them in. That's
Yeah.
what's keeping
It's-
them in this house.
It reminds me of 13 Ghosts, the spells written on the walls. Yeah.
Well, it's like an ancient like black magic. How you would have the circle and you would have the script. You would have the script that surrounded the circle and that kept the bad shit out. This is essentially trapping the bad shit in.
Yeah. So we then cut to the outside of the house where we see authorities begin to arrive along with Sarah, Peter, and of course, Sarah immediately asks where Matt is, where she is informed that he is still inside. I guess the fire department was like, "Fuck it, the kid's gonna die of cancer anyway, might as well leave him in there," because they don't try to save him.
I guess Jonas was like, "Fuck it, your kid's gonna die of
Oh, yeah,
cancer."
Jonas is just
He
using
just
it.
got in the body and he's like, "Oh, fuck, man, this kid's in bad shape. I
Yeah,
remember being alive and it didn't feel like this. Like, this
yeah.
this sucks."
So, back inside, we see Matt is surrounded by all of these creepy ass evil spirits. And he's just like, fuck it, as he then kneels down to his knees, as we then see them all go to grab his face. But right before they get him, we see Sarah burst through the front door, run over, grab Matt, and begin dragging him underneath this table. But unfortunately, she is too late because as she begins reciting the Lord's Prayer, Matt passes away in her arms. But not all hope is lost, as we then see a fireman use an axe to cut through the wall right next to Sarah and Matt, allowing them to escape the burning house. Matt's body is then carried over into the front yard and laid in the grass, where we see paramedics attempt to resuscitate him. We then cut to a now dead Matt who is on the other side of the veil walking through this spiritual graveyard where he pretty quickly spots a now normal looking Jonah. Jonah then attempts to guide Matt to the afterlife, but he hesitates as he begins to hear in the distance his mother crying and screaming for him to wake up. Matt then chooses to go back to his body, where we then see him suddenly wake up and begin coughing as everyone breathes a huge sigh of relief. Jonah then appears to Nick one last time as he says a silent goodbye, and we see Matt look up at Nick. But something interesting happens here because even though Nick can see Jonas, Matt cannot see Jonas anymore, which means he is not on the verge of death anymore.
Yeah.
Finally I got one that I caught.
Yeah,
Um
it's a good catch.
yeah, so we then get a voiceover from Sarah where she basically says that there was a lot of people that didn't really believe her story, but she doesn't give a fuck because her son is alive and that is all that matters. The screen then goes black where we get some after the fact info informing us that Matt Campbell's cancer disappeared and he made a full recovery. Also, the Ekman house has been rebuilt, restored, and resold, and none of the occupants have complained of any ghost shit. And that is the end of The Haunting in Connecticut.
Good ending, man. I see that they learned their lesson on the Amityville thing too. They wrote the story as if all the owners after not seeing any ghosts would actually play favor to the story, whereas the controversy for years over the
Yeah,
Amityville house is everybody who's lived in it since has not experienced any paranormal stuff, plays against the story of the house being haunted.
yeah,
So, yeah, see, they learned a lesson there.
yeah. So we already covered kind of a lot of facts and a lot of stuff, but this movie actually doesn't have like a massive amount of behind the scenes facts, but I do got some I thought was interesting here. So, despite the movie presenting the story like this went on for like weeks or months, the actual family lived there from 1986 to 1989. So, this is in real life, this was a big chunk of time that they dealt with this stuff. Although the film states that the house was destroyed in a fire and rebuilt, well, that is false. There was never a fire, and the original house still stands today. I've seen people actually. There's a YouTube videos of people like driving past it, taking pictures of it, all that stuff.
Yeah, I assume that goes in with the whole Jonas and all that stuff was written
Yeah.
into the story to actually make it a story to be to make into a movie.
So Matt Campbell was based off of the real Philip Snedeker, who unfortunately passed away in 2012, just 3 years after this movie was released. I did not find what he passed away from, though, so I'm not sure.
Not cancer. Not cancer.
Well,
Couldn't have been cancer. He was permanently cured of cancer when he got
by
out of the house.
Yep, by fighting off 87 ghosts. That's how you win your life back.
Yeah.
You gotta battle 87 ghosts.
You get, like, cancer immunity
Yep.
when you do that.
Alright, ratings and kill count. So kills, we only have 6 kills.
Didn't even do a best kill.
I didn't either, but we do have 6 kills. There's 4 random people at the seance that die, and then you have Ramsey, Aikman, and Jonah. So, yeah, 6. And, yeah, I didn't do a favorite kill either because, they pretty much almost all died at the exact same time from the exact same thing. Alright, so rating, and you are up first.
So I gave this movie a 4.0. Definitely one of the better paranormal movies of the 2000s. Like we said in the beginning, I think this definitely kind of changed the paranormal horror game. I will say the best paranormal horror movie of the 2000s, still Sinister by far. Nothing can outdo Sinister in that
Love
regard.
Sinister.
I love the house in particular, like the basement morgue. The feel and the contrast between the basement and the rest of the house really made the house feel like its own character. The cinematography and setup shots I thought were fantastic. The special effects team did a absolutely amazing job with the fucking makeup and the bodies and the ghosts. I thought the characters were extremely well written, and I thought all the actors absolutely killed their parts. Like, none of the main actors were bad in this movie. The props crew killed it. I thought the old creepy photos and the ectoplasm shots, the period specific props, all that, thought was done fantastic. Overall, fantastic 2000s paranormal movie that relied much more on practical effects than a lot of paranormal movies that we got around that time and since. And I think it just got some legitimately creepy and unsettling parts in it.
I gave the movie a 3.5, which is a whole entire point higher than I rated it before we did this episode. Honestly, man, like most of my rating is like the amazing imagery. Imagery's great. The makeup design is 5 out of 5. The cinematography is really good. It's, I'd say it's a 4 out of 5. And the jump scares, there was some really good jump scares in this. Jump scares rarely get to me, but a couple of these did. And I was kind of happy I hadn't seen the movie for so long because I had kind of forgot about that stuff. My big gripe, man, is the story. There's, chunks of the story that's weak. If you take away like ectoplasm stuff and the cancer plot, it is, very similar to the Amityville Horror. I see the appeal in the movie, but this is it's not my kind of movie. The first time I watched it, it was maybe in the middle, it started to lose my attention. Big part of that is I'm not super into Ghost unless it's done unique, like it's something I haven't seen a bunch of times, and this movie kinda stayed on that course of we gotta, help the ghost trauma, you're gonna get a couple clues, you gotta do a research montage, then you gotta do something at the very end to set the ghost free. It's very standard, so I did not get those points for sticking to that formula we've seen so much. But yeah, man, I give it 3.5, and my opinion has changed, but I still am not on board it being a great movie.
Yeah, I think the ghosts are one of the things that sets this movie apart for me.
The ghost is a number one thing I'm into in this movie.
The ghosts, like a lot of ghosts in ghost movies now are like CGI or translucent or, not solid, super creepy looking dead corpses. And I think that's awesome. So my favorite part of the movie.
If they would have done the ghost like that, I would have stayed in the 2s for this movie. Yeah, I wouldn't have budged very much on my original opinion because all that's really left is the story, and the story is just okay to me. It's not great. The ghost is really what's gonna make me watch this movie again in another 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I'll put it that way.
It's the practical effects and makeup that
Yes,
they did on
100%.
I think that's what makes that's what sets it apart from your standard ghost movie. and what really makes it stand out as one of the better ones of the 2000s.
Yeah. Now, I will tell you, like, I just don't see my opinion drastically changing for a movie like The Conjuring. I don't think that, like, say we covered The Conjuring tomorrow, I don't think that needle would move as much for me as it did on this movie, and it's because of the imagery and the ghosts.
Yeah.
That's it. So that is our opinion of The Haunting in Connecticut. Once again, we thank you guys for listening. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the website, check out the socials. Tell a friend, a family member, or a landlord who doesn't tell you your house is evil about the show. And we hope to see you next time.